is that if the revolution was so important in the development of the South and thereby in the development of the United States as a whole, why hasn't anyone said this before? It's the thought that keeps me up at night. And I just want to briefly hit a couple of things. I think it's partly historiographic. I think it has to do with the way in which we've bisected and vivisected our chronologies, although Caitlin's paper and a number of the conversations here give me hope that we're moving beyond that. I think it also has a little bit to do with the dominance of New England, both in terms of whose story is told and who tells the story, from George Bancroft to Balin and Wood. But more than that, it has to do with slavery and the way that slavery is still talked about around the American Revolution. Over the past 2 or 3 generations, there has been remarkable work done, including work by many of the people here, to integrate the story of slaves and of other subaltern groups into the general arc of American history. But for whatever reason, I mean, not for whatever reason, I think I know the reason why, slavery and the American Revolution remains rather separate. And so, right, so you've got books about the American Revolution, then you've got books about slavery in the American Revolution. You've got books about the early republic, and you've got books about slavery and the early republic. But I dearly believe that you can't understand how the war changed slavery without thinking about how the war changed everything else. And you can't think about how the war changed everything else without thinking about how the war changed slavery. In the paper you read, I tried to move this in this direction by, in part, echoing Michael McDonald's piece, taking the war seriously as a brutal and difficult conflict that engaged every aspect of society. Specifically, I attempted to merge the histories of slavery and of the war itself by arguing that the revolution resulted in a massive forced transfer of property, especially slave property, that was essentially unmatched until the American Civil War, excepting, of course, the taking of land from Indian tribes. And this transfer came in turn not about as a premeditated goal of either Whigs or Tories, but as a consequence, again, of waging a total war within a slave society. As the war in the South intensified, and as the price of slaves rose at the same time that paper currency and other forms of movable property became either worthless or unobtainable, enslaved men and women became not only a primary object of fighting, but also a primary means by which the fighting itself was prosecuted.